Hello and welcome back to the Life Writing Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Jones. In this episode of Let's Write About Now, Julie Sponagel is back for part two of nonprofit work, along with Ed Slaughter. Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey Chris, how you doing, brother?
I, I
Hello.
am I am doing pretty good. Like that coffee Ed is sipping on in the evening time.
In the
Ed, I
evening.
had I had to do it. I had to do it, Ed. I've been so eager to do this part two. The information that Julie shared in part one, Ed, as I spoke with you a couple of weeks ago, it really moved me in so many different directions. I could hardly wait to meet you first and foremost, but especially to kind of have this dialogue and this discussion about this topic in particular. Julie shared, obviously her background, told us a little bit about herself and some things about her passion work specifically as it relates to Stay Out Inc. Now, Ed, it's your turn. Tell us a little bit about you, the man, the myth, the legend.
Well, Chris, I'm somebody that has had a lot of lived experience uh, within being incarcerated.
Hmm.
I went to prison as a juvenile, and I spent 33 years inside a maximum security prison for first degree murder. And during that time, I had a lot of opportunity to, think about, my situation,
Hmm.
as I was literally fighting for my life. And, during that time, I saw a lot of things and I learned a lot of things about the system.
Hmm.
And one of the main things that, I saw over and over again was people leaving prison, coming back to prison, leaving prison, coming back to prison. And I didn't understand why people were
Right.
taking these opportunities for freedom and basically I thought throwing them away.
Mm.
But as I started learning more about it, and I started asking questions, as people came back, like, why are you back in here?
Mm.
Why you didn't stay out there with your family? And the same thing kept being repeated by these people. And that was, hey man, it's tough. I don't have anything, nobody's there to help. And I
Right.
just couldn't get myself reestablished. So I basically went back to what I knew, and that ultimately led them back inside the prison.
So you founded Stay Out Inc. Can you give us just an overview as the why and kind of that mission set behind it?
Your Stay Out Inc. came about as my journey from being incarcerated all those years
Mm.
to transition into society was such a hard transition for me. And during that time, I had the firsthand experience of understanding more clearly what those guys were saying every time they came back into the prison system. There was no help for me when I got
Mm.
out, and I
Right.
went in at a time period where there weren't cell phones or, I never had any computer experience. So I was entering a whole new world that I had never been in. And, everywhere I turned for help, where there was supposed to be, this particular place you can go to get, help or, somebody help you find a job or get clothing or, secure housing. Everywhere I went, I was basically turned away and I was really frustrated. And then I understood, okay, this is why recidivism is at an 82% clip for a lot of people. This is why it's so hard for people to get out and stay out because there's nothing there to help them. And they expect them to be able to get out and figure it out. But without any help, it's almost an impossible task to conquer.
Absolutely. When Julie mentioned that 80+% rate to me before, I mean it just blew me away. Just to think about it on the surface and to picture it's like a revolving door in essence. Um, it was just so alarming to hear that. But of course, having the Stay Out Inks, having yourself with that vision, and having someone like Julie to help if you will, bring it to fruition in various capacities and the work that she's doing. And we're going to hear more about that. It gives me hope, right? And I know if it does that for me, I can only imagine how it continues to move you on a daily. So, speaking of Miss Julie, how has she helped you with this effort thus far?
Julie is the glue. Julie is the person that, you know, holds everything together. She's the organizer. She's the person that when I got all these ideas coming into my head, and I'm like, hey, let's do this, let's do that, let's link up with this group. She's the one that said, hey, listen, we got so many irons in the fire already. Let's concentrate on this. Let's concentrate on that. This is a priority right here, right now. She's the glue. She's the one that holds everything together. She's the one that's the great organizer. And she's the person that I first went to when this vision came to me.
Wow.
And and
Yeah.
she was like, hey, listen, I think it's a great idea. And from that point, Stay Out was basically born at that time. So
Wow.
she's the
Wow.
glue. Julie
She's
is the glue.
so I now you have me curious. So what was it about Julie?
When I first got out, I was working with another organization, and Julie was a part of that organization. And during that
Okay.
time, I got a chance to meet her, and I got a chance to learn about her passion for people, period, and especially for this type of work. And it was different. Like a lot of people, they say they want to help, and they say they got a heart for other people and a passion for this type of work, but when it comes time to actually putting that work in, boots on the ground, then it's kind of different. With her, I saw it every time I was working with her in that organization. And when this vision came to me, she's the first person I thought about, like, hey, this is who I need to talk to.
I can attest to meeting her several years back, and our other capacities, kind of government contracting, if you will, right, Julie? And
Mm-hmm.
I can totally see everything you said. The first time I met her, I mean, just her level of professionalism for one, and
Mhm.
she was so personable. So, Julie, so you are the executive director. In terms of be it your day to day, you laid out some particulars during part one. What what do the resources look like? What do you guys provide? I know Ed touched on a few things, but from your perspective, what does that part look like?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to share a little bit about what we're pulling together. I'd say it's a combination of proactive and reactive activities and resources. And what I mean by that is definitely Ed's perspective. We came in knowing there were a few things we absolutely needed to provide, but we also are responsive to people coming to us and saying, hey, this is something that we need, right? So that's why I say it's a combination of proactive and reactive.
Hmm.
And I think we feel comfortable with that balance because as there are resources out there in the sense that I don't want to suggest that there's nothing out there. There are state programs that exist, and there are some federal programs that exist in some places. There are other nonprofits doing similar work. It is simply insufficient.
Mm,
And so we're here to try and fill in those gaps, and those gaps are huge. It's very insufficient. In
mm,
some places, it's because it's just not enough resources out there. In others, they're just not meeting enough needs. And so I'm not trying to suggest that we're meeting all of those needs now. In fact, we're growing and just starting, but we're trying to fill in those gaps. So that's where some of that responsiveness is. And as we expand, we'll anticipate continuing to do that. So where we are right now, as of March of 2026, right? This may change even later next week, right? As we add resources and capabilities. But as we stand right now, we have client work in a couple of different ways. We are actively helping folks with immediate transition needs.
okay.
So these are typically transitioning from incarceration to being out, and there's some sort of like gap there, typically financially. It may be, hey, they've secured housing and they've secured a job, but they won't get their first paycheck for 2 or 3 weeks. And how are they? And in some cases, they're finding transitional housing that is charging by the week, and so they need the first 2 or 3 weeks of housing taken care of. Or they may have a job, but they don't have any resource. They don't have a car. And if they don't have a job that's off of a bus line that they can get to easily, they may need to Uber, or they may need help in like starting a down payment for a car, those kinds of things, right? So I would say those urgent transitional, we had a gentleman who was preparing for a job interview and had no appropriate clothing for that. So we're helping him with getting clothing for a job interview. Like, so these are all things that if you think about, if you're starting some of these life transitions in a kind of a standard, don't put incarceration in the story sort of way, right? Normally you're like, you start a job when you're still living at home, and if you have to wait a couple weeks for that first paycheck, you're not like, it's fine, right? Or you get a job while you still have housing and you have someone who can give you a ride, and then you get a car, right? Like those are the kinds of transitions that come somewhat naturally when you don't have incarceration inserted in the middle of that. Right. And when you do, that transition becomes very challenging. So that's our primary focus right now with clients, is really helping with that transition so that we don't lose them in that first month, because all of the stats say that that first year is the hardest year. And from our experience, what we would say is actually the first month is the hardest month. We also
Julie, so I thanks for mentioning that. And the only reason I wanted to interject right quick, now I'm curious again. I stay curious, right? Ed, so she mentioned within that first year, she just mentioned within that first month how vital they are. You witnessed this firsthand, that 80+% recidivism rate. Excuse me. What would you? Can you confirm that? Can you validate that? Had you? Were they coming back in that quickly?
Yeah, I mean, some of them wouldn't even last that long. And the issue is when you got somebody that's locked up, that's getting ready to get out, either they got a place to go or they don't. And in a lot of cases, they don't have a place to go. So they're coming out basically homeless. You know what I'm saying? Or if they got a place to go, it's up under somebody else's roof, up under somebody else's rules. And a lot of times you've been going away from your family. You guys are clashing. You're not getting along because you're speaking one language, they're speaking another language. Person coming out of incarceration, been locked up for a while. He felt like, okay, if I'm at home now and now my family's trying to basically be the warden to what I'm doing. I'm grown. I've been told what to do all this time I was incarcerated. Now I want to have freedom. I don't want nobody telling me what I'm doing. I don't want nobody monitoring every movement that I make. So that creates kind of a hostile environment in a lot of situations. And then a dude to say, well, I'd rather just go wing it on my own versus stay up under somebody else's roof.
Yeah.
And during that time, it's hard because now you don't have a stable house. You don't have any income coming in yet. So what do? You know, just quickly, all those plans and ideas you had walking out the door that you was going to implement, all that's out the window now. So what are you going to do? Now they back to going to what they used to do. And that leads back to incarceration in a lot of instances. So, that part right there of helping them feel stable and feeling a sense of security is very key to helping them keep that mindset like, okay, I can make it. I got people that care about me, understand me, and my mindset coming out of this incarceration. So they need that encouragement. They need to feel like they're supported and understood. And with that kind of helps push them through that sticking point of, am I going to make it or am I going back? Because a lot of them, they abandon it quickly. First chance of any resistance,
Yeah.
they revert back, because that's what they're comfortable with. Not that's what they really like, but they're comfortable with that. So it's very critical to be able to be there to help them get past, that really, really rocky part. And that's the first part of being out, because everything is new. You don't really know what's going on, where you're going to get assistance from. Everywhere you turn, you're getting turned down. So, to have somebody say, okay, listen, we got you. Just stay focused. Let's get you to work. Let's get them paychecks coming in. You got stable housing. You don't have to worry about that. Just kind of taking that pressure off them as much as possible so that they can settle in to a new normal for them. That's what she means. That's why that's so critical.
Julie, when you said it, I pictured all of that. I'm like, whoa, hold up. Ed mentioned that in his opening, that again, that revolving door as I captured it, which brings me and Julie, I'm coming right back to that part, okay?
Yeah.
But this hit me as well. This question is to you, Ed. Is there any type of how can I put this? Any type of prep work that inmates receive when they are near their release date?
No, there's not. No, the system is not set up to help you be successful coming out of a bad situation like that. The system is set up for you to do just what this recidivism rate says, 82%, for you to come back. Because every time you come back, they get paid for that. They get paid for every head there. It's like cattle. Every head there during count is money, for the state or for the federal system. So they're not prepping you to get out and stay out. You're basically set up to sink or swim. There's nothing there for you to, okay, we're gonna teach you how to go get your social security card. We're gonna teach you how to do job interview. We're gonna teach you, how to manage uh, your trauma that you've been throughout your life. So when you run into a hard situation, you don't snap out and lose it. There's none of that in place, for guys or women when they get ready to come out of those places. So, it's basically, hey, you out, good luck. You know what I mean? Or we'll see you when you get back. That's really what they say when you walk out the door. We'll see you when you get back. We'll be here when you get back.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. This is really hitting me. And I in complete transparency, I have this quasi smile or smirk on my face to kind of quell some of my other real feelings right now.
I did 33 years. I went in at 16. I came out at 49. And it was known when I was going to be released well in advance. And nobody ever came and said, hey, listen, let's talk to you. Let's talk about, what this transition is going to be like for you. You know what I'm saying? Nobody ever came and had those conversations with me. It doesn't happen for people. So basically I went from being in this institution for 33 years, everything is controlled and you don't know what's going on in society because you locked away, to now today I'm free. I'm in a whole nother world. I'm in a whole nother world that I had never been in. I didn't have a cell phone. I didn't have a computer. So somebody had to teach me all
driver's
these
license.
when I got out. Didn't have a driver's license. Somebody had to teach me. I had to learn how to drive. I mean, it was basically being like a small child, but a grown man, 49 years old, and having to basically learn everything all over again. I had never lived on my own. I never had a place that I rented or owned, or I never had any. I never had any. I never had a job. I never, had any of these things. You don't have a 30-year history of working, so you got retirement savings and all these things that people just going through normal progression of life accumulates over time. You don't have these things in place, so now you out, and it's like, okay, what do I do? How do I get myself in a position to start building towards these things? But now your window is very, very short now. You don't have that much time. So, what do? And with that, if you don't have the right things in place to really help you, you'll panic, and, you'll start thinking things that you shouldn't be thinking, that's not going to be, what I'm saying, they're not going to turn out good for you. But trying to figure out, how am I going to, get caught up? How am I going to, how am I going to sustain myself? What's retirement going to look like for me? I can't work forever. So, when you start thinking about all these things, it can be very daunting. So you need, things in place to help manage these things, even just mentally. Can you go talk to a trauma specialist? Can you go have somebody that's been through this? They can kind of talk to you and help you when you get to really tough decisions to make, or you feeling stressed out. I mean, if none of these things are in place, what do you do?
Wow.
So all this is part of why Stay Out, was so important for me, is because I wanted to help people be able to navigate that and mitigate, that transition. So that's why this was so important. I wanted as many resources as possible to be in one place where you ain't being sent all over the place trying to piece together.
I like that.
Trying to piece together, a life. All these things are under one roof. You can get all the help you need right here. And that's how we was basically forming Stay Out. And that's what was in mind when we was forming Stay Out.
Right. As many resources as possible in one place. And Julie, I know I interrupted you because the point you made was just it just resonated with me so much. Do you want to add anything to that?
I want to talk a little bit about this, because I want to talk from the lived experience of someone who hasn't been incarcerated. Because I would dare say a lot of the people who are going to be listening to this haven't. So let me address what we've been taught when we haven't been incarcerated about what that is. First of all, we keep talking about this 80-some%. So let me give the stat on where it is. I challenge any listener to try and find a positive stat about recidivism. You will find, normally you can find a stat that'll support any side. This one is one you just can't find something positive, but you can find stats that are all sorts of different types of stats. They will look at demographics, type of crime, whether it's state, federal, different things like that, right? Ages, they'll do it by those demographics, etc. So there's a lot of stats thrown out there. The one that we're referring to over and over is the one that I think is probably our most comprehensive stat, and that was done by the Department of Justice in 2021. And they reported that 82% of people who were incarcerated in state prisons were arrested at some point in the 10 years following their release. The vast majority of those folks were arrested within the first 3 years, and more than half of those folks within the first year. So that's that 80-some% that we're referring to. I wanted to clarify that so we knew exactly where that was coming from. You can see other stats that look even worse than that, as if 82% isn't a bad enough number.
Right.
Also, what we're often told about incarceration is that that there's lots of opportunities when you're incarcerated. Okay, I've been told that. I don't know if you've been told that, Chris, too, but you can go and get your degree while you're incarcerated, and they'll give you job training, and you can have all these opportunities when you get out, etc. And I have heard of some programs that are out there that both inside and outside the prison that are designed for that. If there are programs there, I'm telling you they're insufficient. And the reason I'm telling you that is because we deal on a regular basis with people who are coming out and don't have something as simple as the ID they need to be able to show that they could be employed. They don't have the job training for this. They're facing such insurmountable hurdles that when you put it all together, they are not equipped to handle all of the things coming at them at one time. So, we've just talked about housing and employment. We have not talked about any of the additional things that might be up against them. What if they're trying to reunite with children? I talked recently to a woman who was just struggling to pay her rent. And the reason was not because she was not employed or didn't make enough money. The reason was because she couldn't pull in a full 40 hours. Why couldn't she pull in a full 40 hours? Because she had a one-way, each way was an hour bus ride because she didn't have transportation. So she was adding 2 hours every time she went to work to her day to go to and from. And she still had to have regular meetings with her parole officer through the week. And of course, those were daytime hours. And she was trying to get reconnected with her children. And so she would show up to school and doctor's appointments and things like that, as every parent often tries to do. And this was something that she had to do to be able to show that she could be a stable mother. All of that together meant trying to pull in 40 hours a week was nigh to impossible when you add all of those things in together, right? And so resources are very limited when you add so many pieces together, that when you put this in again, without the story of incarceration interrupting the trajectory of life, it's not to say that you don't have things that pile up. We all have things that pile up. It's not to say that you don't have difficult times. We all have difficult times, and there are lots of reasons that people need resources. So, coming back to your theme, Chris, of getting involved in nonprofit work, whatever's tugging at your heartstrings, please get involved with that. There's lots of places that you can help people who are struggling. This is one area that we see the pile up happening so fast at such a rapid clip with no resources, or if there are resources, they are simply insufficient to meet the need. And we know that because we talk to people on a regular basis who are dealing with that, and Ed himself lived it. So what we've been told is happening is not happening, or it's happening at such an insufficient level that the proof is there. 82% of people are rearrested within the first 10 years who are, incarcerated at the state level.
Whew. That's a lot to unpack there. Wow.
A lot of ways to get involved, right? A lot of ways to get involved.
Let's stay there with that, getting involved from a volunteerism perspective, obviously specifically as it relates to, you guys' organization. Ed and I'll start with you first. Where do you see the greatest need?
People that have a willingness to do, like, for instance, research, like being able to research for resources. Like when you got people coming out of these places, everybody's going to different locations. And like the biggest challenge, for instance, is somebody say we in Kansas City and somebody's going to the Boot Hill in Kansas City. What are the available housing there for them? What's the transportation available there for them? How are we going to get them plugged into healthcare? If they need to see, most of them need to go see some type of mental health person. So, you have to be able to have resources available in basically every little spot, of that city that you live in, because you never know where somebody's trying to relocate to when they come out of there, or if they're going back to the area that they came from. So a lot of that from us right now is identifying those places that will work with somebody that's incarcerated. Biggest problem we've been having is, one, nobody wants to rent to somebody that's got a conviction. We have one person that he's been out 5 years now. And every time he was applying for an apartment on his own, he was getting denied because he had a conviction 30 years old. It's 30 years old. But they were still using that to deny him. Now, he got good employment. He could make the payments every month. He hadn't had any issues since he's been released. But because he had a 30-year-old conviction, they were saying no. They kept telling him no. And it took a long time to finally find some place that would accept him. And he's been in there. He's been a perfect tenant. If they didn't know he was, on the application that he was a convicted felon, you would never know, because he's out here doing the right things.
Right.
But nobody give him a chance. And you kind of put a person in a position that, well, I'm trying to do the right things. It don't matter. So why not just go and do whatever I was doing? Because it's so hard. So one of the biggest needs is people being able to help locate resources.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's like one of the hugest The
I
hugest
can see
needs,
that.
making those phone calls, and introducing the organization. Hey, this is what we're about.
Mhm.
This is what we're looking for. We're looking for partnerships, to help these people, get their life back on
Mhm.
track. Are
Mhm.
you as a business, are you willing to hire them? Are you willing to rent to them? And then formulating that list of resources from there.
What would you add to that, Julie?
The interesting thing about this particular nonprofit work, Chris, is that um, it is so comprehensive to life needs that if we have someone who wants to get involved in this work, I promise we'll find a place for them to get involved because we could use research folks. We really could. If you are a Google expert or you just like to be on your phone a lot, we can use you. We really can. We'll just give you some things to look at. An hour a week of research would make a difference to us. If you are a grant writer or a fundraiser, we could use you. If you've got funds that you can donate, we could use you. If you have a specialized area of skill, you can help. You can help people navigate the world of insurance. You can help people navigate doctor's visits and getting started on healthcare. If you can help someone prep for an interview, if you can help someone buy interview clothes, if you can, it doesn't matter what your area of wherever you like to, if you repair cars, we could use you. It doesn't really matter what your area is, whatever you are passionate about, we could probably use you at this organization. So if you're interested, our website is very simple, stayoutinc.com, stayoutinc.com. Very easy. You can go to it. Just let us know you're interested in getting involved. We can get you involved. Now, I would say broader to your whole mission, and that is, you've talked about, this is about nonprofit work. I'd like to tie this back to what Ed said when you guys put me on the spot and you were talking about why me, right? Which anyway, but really, guys, if you're not involved in something that you're passionate about, we're not fully living. And if you are just, we all should have the ability to make this world a little bit better. We all have the ability to be a part of the change we want to see. And I don't care what your area of passion is. If your area of passion is about the environment, then figure out ways to be a part of making environmental impact changes that you want to see. If your area is about the young lives of children, there are so many ways that you can positively impact the life of a young child. If you want to help puppies, there are ways that you can help puppies. If you want to clean up your neighborhoods, there are ways to clean up your neighborhoods. If you want to get involved in your area of religious passion, there are ways to get involved in your areas of religious passion. I don't care what your area is. If you like to read books, there are seniors you could read books to, right? It doesn't really matter what you like to do. Whatever it is, you can use that to make a difference in your world. What's cool about Stay Out Inc. is you can probably use any of those things and help us as well. But there are lots of places that you can insert yourself, and it doesn't have to be an extraordinary amount of time, but we can all be a part of the change that we want to see in this world. And meet the world where it's at. And instead of just complaining about it and spending time on social media talking about how broken this world is, because it is, we can be a part of that change. And those few minutes that you're spending complaining about it or dwelling in the negative or simply tuning it out, we can find ways to get involved. And if you need help in those, we're happy to kind of point you, even if we're not the right organization for you, be happy to point you to other ways that you can get involved, and you can get your families involved too. So for those of you who are saying, hey, I work a full-time job and I got kids or other family members that need me and I don't have time to give to that, no, you can do it as a family too. There are plenty of places to do it. And if you don't know where, check where you are locally and your resources, put it out there on social media, say, where can I get involved with my whole family? And I promise you there are places you can do that and make a difference. And if we all did that, waves of change. Waves of change, monumental. If everybody just showed up a little bit to that every single day.
Yeah. A lot of what you just shared kind of segue to the last question I wanted to pose to you guys regarding recidivism And anything comparable to that? Any last thoughts or what have you? I know you just shared a lot, Julie, but any last thoughts?
I would say that I think one of the things that's unique about the experience of growing up in the US, not incarcerated, with the privilege that I have, is that I was often taught simple things about life that when you dig into them, when you kind of peek behind the curtain, you find out aren't really true.
Mm.
And one thing I've realized is you can't unknow things. We can't unsee, we can't unlearn things. We can try to ignore them, but we really don't unknow them. And so when you find and see injustice in this world, when you see something that doesn't seem right, when you have those kind of Scooby-Doo moments where you go, huh? Right? Like we all have those things that hit us at different times. Listen to those and be willing to act upon those. It's not extraordinary. You can weave that into your life. It's just about meeting the world where you see the world and being a part of seeing some changes that you want to see. And it changes the game entirely. And I highly
Right,
encourage folks to do that.
right. Yeah, thank you so much. And Ed, I'd like you to, close us out.
Yeah, for me, it's this, Chris. Don't be, the person that looks down their nose at other people. Think about when you were in your toughest time in your life. Everybody in this lived any life that made mistakes.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
yours might not have led to you being incarcerated, but you've definitely done things that you wish you could take back. And everybody deserves a chance. Everybody can change. And when you got people that's coming out of these situations, give them a chance. You know what I'm saying? Give them a chance. Let them prove otherwise, but give them a chance. And you'll be surprised at what encouragement can do for a person's confidence. You can be surprised what support can do for a person's confidence. You
Hmm.
know, show them what community is. A lot of people coming out in these situations, they never felt love. They never felt like anybody else
Hmm.
cared about them or could relate to what they've been through. So be the person that shows them that. Be the person that extends a hand and says, "Hey, man, I know you've been through this or been through that, but I'm here to help you."
Right.
And watch that light turn on in their eyes that probably has never been lit before.
Yeah.
But give them a chance. I'm living proof that given the right circumstances and the opportunity, you know,
Hmm.
to do something different with your life, it can be done. And that's
Right.
why we doing what we doing here at Stay Out Inc.
Hmm.
So don't be the one that's critical and a hypocrite like you ain't never made mistakes, man.
Hmm.
Be willing to give somebody a hand up instead of putting everybody down. Give them a
Right.
hand, give them a chance. Give them a chance. That's all I ask. That's what we're about, and that's all I ask. And
Right.
see what happens.
Wow. That very powerful. It goes without saying. Um, Julie, I appreciate you even sharing this part of your passion work and introducing Stay Out Inc. And mentioning Ed and part of his story and paving the way for him to be on here and Ed, thank you for being open to it. At some point, Ed will have his own podcast telling and sharing his own story, and myself and others, uh, I'm speaking for others, are going to do our parts in ensuring that we help him in bringing this to fruition. And I know Julie is going to be right there in some capacity as well. So I can't say thank you enough. I'm going to say it again. But this type of information is what people need to hear because we don't know a lot of these things are going on, which is another reason, Ed, why I'm glad you were, willing to come on and being open and transparent and sharing this information.
Thank you
Thanks
for
for having
having me.
us, Chris.
You're
Thank you.
so welcome. I, to the audience, thank you guys for tuning in. Um, I hope this video resonated with you as much as it has for me. Leave a comment and share this video. And when you leave that comment, if you want to pose a question, if you want to make a statement about something related to be it nonprofit work or Ed's experience or whatever, please don't hesitate to do so. While you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as well. Keep in mind, the Life Writing Podcast is another way we creatively inform and inspire, helping people write the lives they desire. Until the next time, take care.